you'll find with an open mind, you may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. It is November 9th, 2014. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Don Baker.
Hey, good to be here.
Filling in for Martin.
Yes, Martin and I had to swap at the last minute, but we're good. He'll be on next week.
This is a live public access television program out of Austin, Texas, and we take live calls, and they'll have the number up for you shortly. And the lines are actually already full. But before we get to callers, how have you been?
Just fine.
Things have been going well?
Yeah. So we're working too hard.
You're not like falling into despair because you don't believe in a God?
No, not today.
Not today?
No, don't have any problems with that.
Well, we'll hope it continues. And you brought something today to talk about.
Yeah, I whipped up a topic. Want to continue with the failures of Christianity, and I've done 26 plus shows before on the failures of Christianity, so several years now. And today
that's almost more shows than we've done.
Almost. Today I wanted to talk about the 27th failure, which is slavery, which is one of your favorite topics, I know.
It is.
The Bible is very pro-slavery, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the Civil War and its epic failure, and talk about how slavery can be made an analogy with gay rights today. So slavery in the Old Testament, well, in Exodus 20 and 21, God talks a lot about the laws having to do with slavery. He says, as part of the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, nor thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. So we're talking about property here, and manservant and maidservant is just a kind of a sugar coating of slave, male slave and female slave.
Although, if you're not allowed to covet your neighbor's ass, isn't that just one more anti-gay thing?
Yeah, I know. I think that he meant donkey.
Does my butt look big in these jeans?
Right. A little later on in Exodus 21, 2 through 6, if thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go free for nothing. And if and if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I shall not go out free. Then his master shall bring him to the judges. He shall bring him also to the door or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. So that's another little law that God came up with. Earlier in the Bible, in Genesis 9, there was the curse of Canaan that was used to justify slavery. And there's this claim in Christianity, the slavery back then was just fine. It was kinder and gentler. But in Exodus 21, 20 through 21, and if a man should smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money. So it's not good to beat your slave to death. But if you kill them indirectly, that's okay, because they're his money. And there's a whole bunch of other silly laws in Exodus. So you would think if slavery okay with God, then the Israelites would be happy being slaves. But in Exodus 3:7, and the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry of reason by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And the Lord did set out to steal the slaves from the Egyptians. And there's a lot of soft pedaling of the word slave. It's bondservant or manservant or maidservant in these modern translations. So be careful of that. So in the New Testament, you'd think Jesus could come out and say, well, let's fix this thing, but he doesn't. So I have a bunch of quotes. I have Titus 2:9, Colossians 3:22, Ephesians 6:5. Let me just read one here. Colossians 3:22, slaves, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as man-pleasers, but in the singleness of heart, fearing God. So that's kind of the notion of slavery. And again, Jesus could have changed the law, but he said in Matthew 5:17, I do not think that I've come to abolish the law or of the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. So the Bible's a pro-slavery document. Did you want to mention any other part of the Bible stuff? Because you're more of an expert on that than I am.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff, and it gets talked about in a bunch of different ways, where it's people will say, well, the Bible isn't endorsing slavery, it's just not prohibiting slavery. Well, even if that were the case, and it's not, by the way, even if that were the case, why isn't it prohibiting slavery? Why was that so difficult? And I had conversations with people, ministers, preachers, who would say things like, well, God had to speak to people in the way that they understood it. Slavery was already an established tradition, and so he couldn't just come in and kind of like, I don't know, toss the money changers out of the oh wait, yes, he could do that. He couldn't just come in and dictate that, now you guys have to stop keeping slaves. Well, why not? Well, why couldn't? I mean, if God can say thou shalt not kill, why is it so difficult to say thou shalt not own another person as property?
Sure.
And if that's what's actually moral, if you're gonna argue for moral absolutes that are derived from the mind of God, then what the Bible says is that you can own people as property. They become your property. They are passed on to your children. It comes up with special rules for Hebrew slaves that you have to let them go after 6 years, and then it specifically tells you how you can, a loophole, so that you can keep Hebrew slaves forever as well. And you can just think about this, take it away from the context of the Bible, and if you thought that owning people as property was immoral, and you were going to inspire a book of writings about what you thought was moral and give instructions to people, you could maybe make an argument that you might forget to mention slavery at all. But would you ever mention it in the context of saying, yeah, here's what you should do with slaves. You should try to treat them well, but you can beat them as long as they don't die within a couple days. And they're your property that you can pass on, and they're worth about 30 shekels of silver on average. I mean, would you say anything remotely like that if your position was slavery is immoral? And this is the stupidity of apologists for the Bible, trying to make it seem like, it's not actually endorsing. Why not just say the Bible got slavery wrong? Because now you're admitting that the Bible can get stuff wrong, and then we have to have a discussion about how you determine that.
Not only the Bible is wrong, the God is wrong, because God's supposedly speaking this in the Bible, right?
Well, when Ray Comfort was on, we kind of went down this path, and Ray's response was, well, I don't believe everything in the Bible, which is going to blow people's minds, because it doesn't seem that he believes anything else other than what's in the Bible. So to find out that he doesn't, believe everything that's in there, it was eye-opening. And yet there are, when I did the event at the Church of Christ, the 3 nights of debates in San Antonio, they were falling all over themselves to find any excuse. Well, God knew that slavery was eventually going to go away, so he gave them laws to make slavery a little nicer. I just read something. I can't find the webpage that I was on because I was looking up, what are apologists saying about slavery. And there was somebody who has a website where the passage about letting a slave go after 6 years, and he wrote, this has to be one of the most beautiful laws regarding slavery ever. No, there's nothing beautiful about saying, hey, you can keep them for 6 years and then you can trick them afterwards. The only beautiful law about slavery is you can't own people. That's a beautiful law. I don't get it. If you're a theist and a Bible believer and you have some reason why your God would not correct this issue of slavery explicitly and actually get it ass backwards, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Well, this, of course, brings us to the Civil War, where the slavery was kind of the main issue. And, if there are two silver linings of the Civil War, one is the United States stayed together, and the second is that the slavery was abolished in the United States.
Well, given some things, I'm not sure it's such a silver lining that the United States stayed together.
Yeah, well, okay, it's debatable. So over 4 years, 600,000 people dead, not to mention the destruction of the South. So I won't rehash the Civil War. But God surely must love a holy war, if you have to look at that. And I think that this the war brought out some skepticism in Lincoln. There's a quote of his that says, The will of God prevails. In great contests, each party claims to act in accordance with the will of God. Both may be, and one must be wrong. God cannot be for and against the same thing at the same time. So this is obviously showing that he was troubled by the fact that the two sides were fighting each other, and both incidentally using the Bible to try to out-Bible each other. So it's a bit of a Rorschach test. You can kind of find whatever you want in there. But I would say that the Bible is pretty unequivocally pro-slavery.
And by the way, you're probably going to get some pushback from some historians and people who love history about just how much the Civil War was or wasn't about slavery. But I don't think anybody would deny that it was a key issue.
Sure,
So.
sure. Well, there's the economics behind slavery,
Yeah.
right? That was certainly a big part of it. Jeff Davis, who was the president of the Confederate States of America, had no such equivocation. He said, slavery was established by decree of the Almighty God and is sanctioned in the Bible in both testaments from Genesis to Revelation. It has existed in all ages, has been found among all the people of the highest civilization, and in the nations of the highest proficiency in the arts. So his sentiment echoes today in the Christian identity movement and the KKK, which are both fringe groups. So the irony is that Christians today claim that our nation is strong because of divine blessing. And gosh, wouldn't it have been a lot stronger if we didn't have this Civil War that was fought over really, in some respects, a biblical issue. So today we have this same sort of fighting going on, but on a different topic, on the topic of gay marriage or gay rights. And gay demonization is all the rage. Demagogues are finding quotes in their Bibles to vilify gays, and it's a big money maker for a lot of Christian groups and a lot of the religious right and such.
Did you hear about the preacher who evidently saw some satire news post about Starbucks?
And went ape shit.
And thought it was a real news story and then kind of parroted it out and got busted? It was something about Starbucks is flavoring their coffee with the semen of sodomites or something like that.
I saw something like that.
It was some
so
satire
that I just...
And some preacher just ran with it, which was, it's just too funny. I mean, I have a little bit of a problem with some of the satirical websites because it's often not obvious that they're satire. They're expecting you to be a little smarter and more observant than I guess a lot of people are.
Right. So today you can find quotes about the biblical this or that about gays in your Bible, but you can also find quotes about this or that about slavery. And but today, they're making money on it, and slavery they've kind of can't make money on it so much. So it's kind of a fallen out of favor. So God's absolute morality is up for whoever's making a profit this week. So ironically, black Christians are staunch opponents of gay rights, driven by their churches and citing the Bible. So that's kind of sad that the people who were victims of the Bible back in the day are now using it to vilify others.
And that one. So one of the problems with doing the show is that I don't have ready access to statistics and stuff like that. I'm not so sure about the last one, because the impression that I have from some discussions is that that there are a lot of black churches that have been instrumental in being among the first in Christianity to advocate for gay rights. I don't know if I could have it asked backwards. I don't know.
Well, in the last Obama election, or last couple of Obama elections, it brought out the black vote in spades, and some liberals were thinking, oh well, we'll have more folks who are liberal at the polls, but a lot of the gay marriage issues that were up for vote at that time didn't pass, and so the analysis at the time was, these folks are maybe liberal in some areas, but on gay rights they're not. So that's where I'm getting that.
Well, I don't have any statistics in front of me anyway.
So well, neither do I. So if anybody's interested, I can try to look them up for whoever. So in conclusion, I have a quote from George Washington: "Religious controversies are always productive of more acrimony and irreconcilable hatreds than those which spring from any other cause." Love it. And God's absolute morality is pro-slavery, yet Christians are rightly against it. So good for Christians, maybe not so good for Christianity. And so this is another failure of Christianity.
All right.
Let's go to calls.
I think there's, a seemingly never-ending supply of these failures. I think you have picked the perfect little, vignette to keep you in business for the rest of your life.
Done these little series, and it's like, yeah, this one's going on a long time.
Sweet.
Okay.
All right, so this is evidently partially on topic. Mike in New York.
Hello.
How you doing? Thanks for waiting.
Matt, Don, how are you?
Hey.
Doing well.
Okay, just wanted to share some experiences with you. I grew up in Jamaica in the Caribbean, and I'm telling you, the impact that slavery had on Jamaica and Christianity is unbelievable. And I actually remember going to high school, and this is public high school. We were all forced to do Bible knowledge. For some odd reason, I couldn't pass. I don't know why. I guess I just couldn't get it. But I couldn't pass the class. And I don't know if you know, but Jamaica has, in the Book of World Records, Guinness Book of World Records, the most churches per square mile in the world.
Wow.
Okay? And, I'm telling you, it's just shocking to see how people just completely ignore any kind of reason or anything whatsoever. Because they want to hold on to this thing, and it's as a matter of fact, I had a discussion with my wife. She's a born-again Christian. I would describe myself as an agnostic, and I said to her, I said, look, I'm going to bring you through a series of logic and arguments, and I said to her, listen, the brain I have, this is the only thing that I have to explore or to reason reality or anything. And if God gave me this brain, that means it should work the way He wanted it to work.
There you go.
So I give her the example. I said, listen, if your child was supposed to go out on the street and you told your child, don't go on the street, right? If you saw your child going out there, would you try to save your child, prevent her from getting killed by a car or something? She said, sure. So I said, okay, well, likewise, Adam and Eve. God made Adam and Eve, so He must have seen that they were going to eat of that fruit, right? So why didn't He stop them?
Oh, yeah.
It's
such a silly little story, right?
It just doesn't make any sense. She's telling me, you got to read your Bible. When I started reading the Bible, I got even, back on the slavery issue. I started reading the Bible, got up to what is it, Numbers 31, I think, 16 to 18, something like that.
Yeah, everybody stops there.
It's crazy because what is this thing with virgins? Holding on to the virgins. These people were pretty much going to be used as sex slaves.
Yeah.
Keep them for yourself.
The obsession with foreskins is kind of ironic too.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that make sense.
I just can't get it. And the whole thing is you have to have faith. And I'm saying you can say I have to have faith, but what's the point in fooling yourself that you have faith? It just doesn't make any sense. I just can't get it.
I agree.
Yeah, it's like Dan Dennett's having belief in belief sort of thing. It really doesn't have any value, I think. I've often thought of faith as a liability, right? If you're believing stuff that isn't true, then you're hurting yourself, and you're better off believing things that are true. And Matt said things even more eloquently than I have. So this whole idea of faith as a virtue is just flat-ass wrong.
If you go out to my YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/sansdeity, SANSDEITY. As part of the Patreon project that I've been doing, I just put out last month a video that talks about faith in a variety of forms. Doesn't cover everything about faith because there's some aspects that I'm going to talk about in other videos, but it's a look at it. This idea that it's a virtue is to me just ridiculous. Because faith isn't a way of knowing. It's not a demonstrable path to truth. It's not reasonable or reliable. Faith is the excuse people give for believing something when they don't have a good reason.
Exactly.
It's a great way to get conned.
Yep.
And my neighbor, he's a Seventh-day Adventist. We had a short discussion and we started talking about dinosaurs and men coexisted, and he actually got to, this man is a scientist. He's a scientist. You know, he actually said to me that he believed that dinosaurs existed, and they were created by genetic engineering. And I just stopped talking. I just stopped talking right away. Because they're trying to find some kind of explanation.
Is he a pharmacist?
You talk about the people who believe that men and dinosaurs, live together, and the old joke is that they must think that the Flintstones is a documentary, but it sounds like a friend of yours is like combined Flintstones with the Jetsons or something.
It's unbelievable. It's like like a child holding on to a blanket, for comfort. And they don't want to let it go, even though they know it doesn't make sense. They still hold on to it, to adulthood, and it's unbelievable.
Yep, I agree. Thanks a lot for the call, Mike. We appreciate it. And,
okay, Matt, Don, you guys doing a good job. All right, keep on listening.
All right, thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, and continuing on, we've got Seth in Idaho, who had, I guess, a question for Don.
Hello.
How you doing, Seth?
Good. My question for Don is just, when specifically talking about the question of slavery, atheists don't always, like, for example, with their sexual ethics. I've heard some atheists say that, well, I'm okay with gay rights and incest is okay as well, as long as nobody gets hurt. Some are against incest, that sort of thing. So atheists have different standards when it comes to their ethics. I'm wondering, when it comes to the question of slavery, what moral standard do you use to determine whether it's right or wrong?
Well, I guess my morals are based on reason, responsibility, and compassion. So reason to understand the world, responsibility to take responsibility for my actions and understand their consequences, and compassion to have compassion for others and understand the effect I have on others when I'm doing something. And it's the old question for slavery. It's the old question is, would you like to be a slave? And if not, then why would you inflict that on others?
Okay. My question for you then is, I promise I have a point with this. Have you ever owned like a cat or a dog or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So humans are highly evolved animals. Why does the fact that they're more evolved mean that it's wrong to own them? I mean, I'm assuming you don't have a moral problem with owning a cat or a dog. Humans are just evolved. What's wrong with owning them?
So first of all, the concept of more evolved is a nonsensical statement. We are not more evolved than anything. That's a complete misunderstanding of evolution. It puts it as a kind of a ladder. When it's not a ladder, it's a tree. But I have pets. I have a variety of them. We've got 4 cats and 2 snakes, and I've had lots of other pets as well. They're not slaves. They are not simple property. I view it as custodianship and responsibility. And in the case of, for example, domestic cats, these are cats, for right or for wrong, that have been bred to be pretty much reliant on humans. This is the domestication process. My pets aren't slaves. And also when it comes to rights and freedoms and moral responsibility, your moral responsibility is proportional to your ability to comprehend. We don't hold children, we don't hold people with diminished mental capacity responsible in the same way that we would hold other people responsible. And when it comes to dealing with the ethics of the situation, it is about, it's always about 2 beings with rights and desires, etc. And how do you work out the relationship between the 2 of them? So, if one of our cats wants to run away, we would be sad, and we would do what we could to protect it, because we understand that, it doesn't have the same understanding we do, but that's not in any way comparable to a slave.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding, and I'm not trying to be passive-aggressive or anything. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I called in specifically to talk to to Don.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Can I talk to him instead? I want to know what his views on that sort of thing are.
Okay.
I mean, are yours pretty much the same as Matt's?
Well, yeah, I'd say so. The question of are we more evolved? Well, we've all been, our genes have all been on this planet about the same amount of time, and if we have a common ancestor, we're all equally evolved. My animals aren't slaves. They're pretty happy, to be honest.
Okay, but why is it that, I mean, you say, well, evolution is a tree, and we're, humans understand, they comprehend things better. I mean, assuming you agree with what Matt said, what I'm wondering is, okay, so we live in, I'm assuming you believe that the universe is essentially just stuff, it's matter, and, okay, so how do you account for laws of any kind, moral laws? I mean, why are your views, I mean, in a materialistic universe, laws literally don't exist. Moral laws, scientific laws, anything.
Well,
so why would you say, why can you make these law-like statements?
They're man-made things, right? Laws are...
Okay, so they're...
So we have laws, we abide by them. There are things that we have worked on and improved and made better over time, and we have societies based on them that seem to work pretty well.
Okay, but why is it morally obligatory for people to do it? I mean, you may say, well, it's more, I mean, yeah, it's a man-made law. Okay, why should other people listen to you when you say that?
Well, human morals are about how humans treat other humans, and as a human, I'm a stakeholder in this, and I have, I can use my empathy to understand the effect of a law or a, course of action on others, right? Okay,
but you would agree that simply because you feel a certain way, that doesn't mean it's morally obligatory. I mean, I might feel that Brussels sprouts are disgusting, but that doesn't mean I'm going to make laws that bind other people to that belief.
Right.
Right. So how do you know that your views on slavery aren't just personal preference? How do you know that they should be obligatory on other people?
Well, gosh, we've all kind of got rid of them out of our laws. We've had the debate. We've over the centuries we've had the Civil War. I have the benefit of the reasoning of everybody else that's come before me. And various people have voiced their opinions.
My question is, okay, yes, it happens that we've gotten rid of it. Why? If you're going to say something is morally wrong or morally right, what standard are you using? By what standard?
The main one is harm, right? Treating someone as a pack animal or as a slave is harmful to that person, right?
Okay, so harming people is wrong, you'd say. Okay, but if we're just all evolved, if we're just matter, why is it, I mean, if an animal kills another animal, no one gets, I mean, unless you're an animal rights activist who wants, unless you're concerned about that sort of thing. I mean, if a lion kills a gazelle, nobody gets upset. They're animals. We're animals too. Why get upset if people mistreat each other?
Because we have higher expectations of humans. Because
that's
humans have the ability to reason.
Why should we have higher expectations of humans?
Because we have bigger brains, and we hold people accountable to various their actions in these sorts of things.
Okay, but
is there some reason you didn't want to talk to me?
Matt's feeling neglected.
Because these are mind-numbingly easy questions to address, and I'm not quite sure what the difficulty here is. Do you think?
I'm trying to make this a very focused call, and that's why I'm trying to talk to Don. So, Don, you keep saying, well, we have bigger brains, we have higher expectations. Okay, why
your voice sounds shockingly familiar
for others to enslave each other?
Say that again, please.
You're saying, well, we have bigger brains, we have higher expectations of humans. Okay, you're talking. Why does that mean it's wrong for one animal to enslave another animal?
I don't know. Have you ever been a slave?
You don't know? So you're admitting that you think slavery is wrong, but you don't know why.
I gave you an answer earlier that I didn't want to be a slave, and therefore I can reason that other people don't want to be slaves also. and they're
Right, but that goes back to my original question of feelings. I mean, I may not, if I murdered someone, I may not feel like I deserve the death penalty, but other people, I might deserve it. My feelings on the matter don't matter. The question is whether it's right or wrong. And you're saying slavery is wrong, and I don't know why.
What do you mean by right or wrong?
That's what I'm asking you. What's your standard of morality? He's saying,
you
it's wrong, but I don't know why.
just said that because you feel it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. What gives you the right to exclude how we feel about something?
Well, again, I used an analogy. I may, if somebody commits murder, I may feel like I don't deserve to be punished for it. But the fact that I feel like I don't need to be punished for it doesn't mean I shouldn't.
Okay, but the person who was murdered was harmed, right? Objectively.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
It was an animal killing another animal. Survival of the fittest. What's wrong with that?
Wow. Go ahead.
Well, gosh.
Because he wants to talk to you.
Okay.
Because he's afraid.
Is this the type of society you want to live in? It's not one that I want to live in.
Right. What I'm asking, I feel like, what my point is that you're dodging the question. You say, well, you don't think that slavery is right, do you? Well, no, I don't. I'm wondering how do you account for it? You're saying it's wrong, well, we don't want to live in a society with slaves. Well, there have been countries that have lived in societies with slaves, and their slave owners seem to enjoy it.
Okay. Well, I guess the fundamental principle here is that we're all sort of equal, right? And that
Okay.
some people aren't more equal than others. In
Okay, fair enough.
animal farm analogy, right? And so, if you're oppressing one group of people to support another, then that's wrong because of this basic principle, right?
So it's wrong for one group of animals to oppress another group of animals.
That's not what he said. I don't know why you go to that.
Well, it's because humans are animals, aren't they?
Okay. We're also a collection of atoms. Is it wrong for atoms to hurt other atoms? I mean, let's try to
in a materialistic universe. In a materialistic universe, there are no laws. Period.
What do you mean by law?
I did say that human laws are human creations.
So if we remove all thinking beings from the universe, the universe doesn't behave in a certain way, because there's a difference between descriptive laws and prescriptive laws. And so when we talk about the physical features of the universe, what we're talking about is descriptive laws. We're describing the way the universe works. It's not like there's a cosmic speed limit for light. We just know how light moves. The physical laws of the universe dictate the limits.
Right. And in a materialistic universe, if all we are is stuff, there are no descriptive laws or prescriptive laws at all. So I don't understand. I mean, you were saying slavery is wrong. Okay, I may agree with you, but I don't share your worldview.
You just said that there's no descriptive laws in a materialistic universe, yet we have descriptive laws.
Right. Somebody who believes in a materialistic universe may say they believe in descriptive laws. But my point is...
I just did.
Like, here's an analogy. Somebody can know how to swim and not tell you how it works. They may have no idea of the physiology or the chemistry or anything like that.
Which doesn't change whether or not there are still physical realities that govern the properties that allow you to swim. The fact that one person does not know something does not mean that there's not a physical property that we could then describe as a law.
Sure, I agree with you there. I don't believe in a purely materialistic universe, so I think there are laws. But what I'm saying is, if all we are is matter in motion, we're just evolved animals, it's just a material universe, there are no laws. You're
just wrong.
And Don, I'd like to continue talking to you, Don.
I tell you what, how about we just move on to somebody else?
You're welcome to
slavery is wrong,
email
and
us.
you don't know why.
No, well, see, you talked to Don, and you asked specific questions, and he gave you responses that you just didn't accept.
Yeah, he said, I think slavery is wrong, but I don't know why.
He gave you much more than that, actually, but you are now dishonestly cherry-picking what he said. He talked about harm. He also talked
Right.
about whether or not you would want to be a slave. There's this idea in the process of constructing solutions to ethical and moral dilemmas called a veil of ignorance, and that is construct the sort of system that you would like to live in, not knowing who you're going to be in that system. Now, we are in agreement, I would think, that slavery is not only bad for the individual, but that it is also bad for society, and that it is in fact bad for the slave owners as well, even if they can't necessarily see that right away, correct?
Generally, I agree with you, yeah.
Cool.
I'm not sure I caught everything.
We didn't have to appeal to anything remotely supernatural in order to reach agreement about that. The only thing we had to agree on was that we could look at this situation, determine the consequences of taking a certain action like permitting slavery or allowing somebody to kill someone, and look at the consequent universe that results in, and determine that this is worse for us. Now, individuals can still be wrong in their opinions about things, but that doesn't change whether or not the results are actually worse for us. For example, you could think that it's okay to drink battery acid, but unless you are some kind of extreme exception to the physical laws of the universe, the fact is that's bad for you. Your opinion is irrelevant to the truth of the matter. But for the people who are correct, who are basing this on the facts about reality, they have a process by which they can convince other people. And some of the ways we do that are things that Don said, where he talked about harm. And it's not just that harm is the single determining factor. And I don't even agree that harm is necessarily the primary factor, but it's in there, as is empathy, as is recognizing whether or not you would want to be a slave. You want to know what's wrong with slavery, you ask the slaves.
Okay. John, one of my points is we both agree that slavery is wrong. I think I can account for it. I don't think you can.
Did I just account for it?
An animal to kill
hang on. Whether or not Don can account for it is irrelevant. Did I just account for it?
I'm trying to talk to Don, though.
I don't give a shit. Did I just account for it?
Why? No, I don't think so.
Okay, why not?
Well, at the end of the day, my question is, why do your views on it, why are they obligatory to other people?
They're not. It has nothing to do with the fact that these are my views. It has nothing to do with the fact that these are Don's views. What we are appealing to is the facts about reality, which are true independent of our position. Slavery isn't immoral because it's my view that it's immoral. I view it as immoral because I recognize the problems that come with creating a society that permits slavery. You can't just tie it to...
What if there's a society who wants to permit those problems?
There's nothing...
Are they wrong in doing that?
You just went to a... what if there's a society that wants to? There have been societies, and they've done that. There's nothing to stop them from doing it. However, that doesn't mean that they have instituted a system that is actually beneficial. They could be instituting a harmful system. And so the appeal to resolve this is to look at the facts about reality and not what any individual society or individual's opinions are.
Mm-hmm. Right, and when you're talking about facts, what I'm asking you to do is, okay, you're saying if a society institutes slavery, it has bad consequences. Okay, what if they're okay with living with those consequences? One group of animals enslaving another group of animals. Why is that wrong? Why do you say that's a fact of reality?
In the grand scheme of things, it's not. There is no lawgiver who's going to be pissed off about it.
The fact that they are okay with living with those bad consequences doesn't change the fact that there are bad consequences any more than the person who is okay with the fact that they're going to die from drinking battery acid is still going to die from drinking battery acid. You are not addressing, and you're not acknowledging what I'm appealing to. Instead, you're just diverting to, well, what if somebody has a different opinion? And here's the scary thing, is that all the people who are advocating for religious moral systems, and they aren't actually religious moral systems, they're religious moral pronouncements, they suffer from the exact same problems that you would like to try to expose from a secular view, which is, I don't agree with what you say or what your God says, and don't care what you say or what your God says unless you can present some evidence for why this is actually true. It's the reason why there have been religious wars and conflicts between people of all different religions, because religion does not solve this problem, no matter how much people might pretend that it does. So you're really committing like the Tukul-K fallacy.
Okay. Again, my question is, you're saying there would be bad consequences for a society, like bad consequences for drinking battery acid. Why is it morally wrong for a society to intentionally institute something that has bad consequences?
It is only morally wrong if your morality is based on reality, if it is based on well-being. So all moral assessments...
Right, and the reality you describe to is a materialistic universe.
Seth, all moral assessments are the evaluation of a situation to an ideal.
Right.
That's it.
Except that laws don't exist in a materialistic universe.
Okay, we're now done. We're now officially done because you keep asserting this, and you haven't demonstrated that. How is it that laws don't exist in a materialistic universe?
By definition, in a materialistic universe, there's only matter.
I'm sorry, but you're simply wrong.
Prove it.
Well, why? That which can be asserted, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without it. I don't have to prove your wild, unfounded assertion wrong. You just claimed that in a materialistic universe it is impossible to have laws, and then you claim that it's a matter of a definition. And it's not a matter of definition, because the fact that the universe is material does not tell you whether or not it follows certain laws that are descriptive, constructed by us to describe how the universe works. Basically, what your position comes down to is that a materialistic universe is static and frozen and does nothing and has no properties, which is false. Because in a dynamic universe where things move and interact, you can then describe how things move and interact.
Right. Okay, so you can say, well, in this one instance, this one thing did this, but that doesn't make it a law.
No, that's correct. We don't. Yes. Congratulations for discovering that scientists don't actually just make up laws based on a single observation. We live in a universe that is probabilistic. The laws that we use to describe are approximations of what we observe, and when we find something that doesn't fit, that is a point for another investigation.
Right, but the fact that something could happen 10 million times in a row,
yes,
that doesn't prove it's a law.
No,
it's a chance universe, and
laws,
it's a chance universe, and
scientific
something happens 10 million
laws,
times in a row, that doesn't prove anything.
Seth, scientific laws don't say that because this has happened 10 million times in a row, it's going to happen one more time. Scientific laws describe what has happened in order to determine a probability that can approach certainty, even if it never reaches it. You have a fundamental misunderstanding of what scientific descriptive laws, to the extent, well, laws tend to be in the realm of mathematics and physics and not science. Science creates theories and models. But you seem to have a fundamental misunderstanding of this, which is the fact that the universe is made of material stuff. As long as it's doing something, then you can describe what it's doing.
Right.
And that's all a descriptive law is, right?
Yeah.
So why is that impossible in a materialistic universe?
Well, a materialistic universe, you're saying, well, at the very least, what we know is that the universe is made of matter. We don't, maybe there are no laws, but we'll inductively reason to probabilities. That's essentially what you're saying, right?
No. I don't know why it's so difficult. I don't know why, Seth, I don't know why it's so difficult for you to address what I actually just said. I tried to make it as simple as possible. You've claimed that in a materialistic universe you can't have descriptive laws. I just gave you a demonstration of how descriptive laws work. That is a description of something changing, moving in a dynamic material universe. Now,
okay.
And I'm asking.
So you've described an is. Where does the ought come from?
I have not mentioned an ought.
Right, but you're
descriptive laws aren't oughts. What? Sorry.
Well, what you've said is you've described a universe, you're saying this is the way the universe is. We can have descriptive laws in a materialistic universe. I
Yes.
say, okay.
No, you didn't actually
does
say
the
okay.
condemnation- Where do moral standards come from? You're arguing from an is to an ought.
No, I'm actually not
Is a certain
arguing.
way.
Well, they don't come from God, right? Because if there were a God, he got it wrong on this one, right?
Well,
Wrong by what standard? Where's the ought? You've described an is. Where's the
You
ought?
already agreed that slavery was wrong, right?
where is the ought from
God got it
God?
wrong.
Well, I'm the one who called in, and I'm asking the questions. What I want to know is...
Hang on.
you
No,
said
no,
slavery
sir.
is wrong. That's an ought.
No, sir, Seth.
You said-
Seth, this is actually a discussion. And the goal of the show, we ask people what they believe and why. It's actually us asking the questions. I've been far more tolerable with your shenanigans than perhaps I should, considering how long the call's gone on. The question is that how does appealing to a God, first of all, I haven't made an ought statement. I was talking about ises. We were talking about descriptive laws. And your assertion
Right.
was that descriptive laws can't exist in a material universe, something which I've repeatedly asked you to defend, which you have avoided. And now you're going to say that you're the one who's asking the questions.
Matt, it's an argument from definition. If you say that the world is made of matter and that's it, well, you're defining out of existence laws.
No, you're not.
If you say matter exists and only...
No, if you define that the universe only exists of matter, you have not defined laws out of existence because you haven't demonstrated that matter is incapable of producing a mind with which to identify and observe the differences. You are making a
Well, I
grand
don't say that it
assumption
can't. I'm
in
just
there.
saying we don't know.
Sorry?
I'm not... In that particular argument, I'm not saying that we can't. I'm just saying you don't know. If you say that
I don't know
world's made
what?
of matter,
You're the
you
one
can't
who-
know that there are laws.
Excuse me? You can't know that there are laws? We have...
If what I'm saying is that if the universe is made of matter and it's only made of matter, you can't know that there are laws.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd have
yes,
to
I-
observe every fact of the universe and find out that it, obeys the laws of logic. And
What
then
is
you can
what is
say
your definition of a law?
something that applies to all particulars? I might start with that.
Okay, there are no laws. I'm not aware of any laws.
Okay.
Your definition of law is patently absurd. It doesn't match with the descriptive laws that we were just talking about. It doesn't match with the laws of mathematics or physics. The type of law you're describing is one that is tied up with this idea of absolute certainty. And I'm not aware that we could be or could have absolute certainty with regard to anything.
So you're not certain that slavery is wrong?
No, not absolutely certain.
Okay,
Are you?
sounds good. I am, yeah.
How did now? Just because I'm not absolutely certain, you didn't ask how certain I was.
Okay. So you're not certain.
Does it matter whether or not I'm does it matter whether or not I'm absolutely certain, or if I'm just really, 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 really close to certain? Because I'm convinced that I can't be absolutely certain about anything.
Are you certain about that?
No.
Okay.
Have you been
That's
watching
why I
Seitan
raised the
Brugenkate?
question
Because if not, you
that
can
it's
watch that
untrue.
debate where I actually addressed all this. Are you certain, Seth?
I am, yeah.
How did you get to be absolutely certain? Tell me something you're
that would take
Tell me
one
something you're
time to
absolutely
explain.
certain about and how you got to be absolutely certain.
I can summarize the position, but I don't want you to take the summary as an argument.
I just
Okay.
said, tell me one thing that you're absolutely certain about and how you got to be absolutely certain.
I would summarize it by saying that C.S. Lewis gave a good description of it when he put it this way, that arguing against the existence of God is a lot like cutting off the tree branch that you're sitting on. Any other position slits its own throat.
Well, thank you for that colorful bit of prose, but you didn't tell me one thing that you were absolutely certain about, and you didn't tell me how you were absolutely certain.
Well, God created everything.
And
I'm certain
so
of that.
you're absolutely certain that God created everything.
Yep.
How did you get to be absolutely certain about that?
I get my worldview from Scripture, and Scripture claims that he did that
And how do you know the Scripture is absolutely correct?
because it was written by an infallible God.
How do you know that it was written by a God?
Well, I see where you're getting at this, Matt, and here's the problem. Any hole that you think you can poke in my arguments or worldview, you can't be certain about.
I'm not asserting.
No laws.
I'm not asserting that I'm
Just
absolutely
because you're certain doesn't mean you're right.
See, I have this great new T-shirt with a brain and a vat on it, and it says, I don't know and you don't either. And so you're the one who's claiming that you're absolutely certain, and I'm asking you how. And as we drill back, all of a sudden you realized, oh wait, this is going to lead me to a trap where I have to acknowledge that I'm not actually absolutely certain. Aren't you a fallible being?
Yes, I am.
Then how is it possible for you to be absolutely certain about anything?
Because I have an infallible source from which I...
How do you know that that source is infallible? If you have to assess a source to determine whether or not it's fallible or infallible, and you're fallible, how could you ever determine that the source is infallible?
Because no other position makes sense.
How do you know? How do you know that no other position makes
Don, I'm
sense?
talking to Don, so I'm going to go back to Don.
No, you're done talking to anyone, Seth. Thank you so much for calling and acknowledging that your failings there, because you don't get to dictate that just because the going gets tough and your fallacies related to certainty have been exposed, that you get to move on to Don. Have a good weekend. Yeah, I do this shit for a living.
What fun being a punchy bag. Let's go to another caller.
Yeah, let's do. I'm absolutely certain because God makes me absolutely. This is actually something I want to touch on before we get to the next call, because I'm going to do it a little bit more in a video. I'm doing a deconstruction of the debate that I did with Cy, and I've done 2 parts of that video. There'll be a 3rd one coming soon where I'll address this in greater detail. And the problem, not only as I pointed out, of being a fallible being, trying to address this issue of whether or not there's an infallible God, is that let's assume for the sake of argument that there was a God, and he's infallible, and he knows everything with absolute certainty, which I don't even know how it's possible, but let's say he does. Mm-hmm. And you are not a God. Not only could you not be absolutely certain, I don't see how it's possible that this God could make you absolutely certain. And the example that I used was like, if you've got a dirty filter and you pour water through it, you're not going to get clean water out of it. Mm. Yeah. And it's not a perfect analogy, but the problem here is that
you couldn't possibly distinguish a lying God from a all-knowing God.
It goes back to what we said about the Garden of Eden ages ago, which is, if you read the story, the serpent's the one that tells the truth. But when people say, "Oh, I know that God," I ask them, "How do you know God's the good one and the devil's the evil one?" "Oh, well, because God's the good one." No. You've made that determination.
Right.
What standard did you use to judge? "Oh, well, God has written His moral code on my heart." Well, you're judging God by God's own standard at that point. And if you judge the devil by the devil's own standard, then he'd come out shining. If you judge me by my own standard, I'd come out shining. All you're doing is making an axiom that says, I'm absolutely certain that God exists and made me absolutely certain because I'm going to assume that God exists and is perfect and is capable of making me certain.
Yep.
You can't, if your calculator only displays to 5 significant digits, you're not going to get 100 significant digits out of it. It's just not possible. But anyway. Brittany, thanks for waiting.
Oh, yay. I'm glad to be on, and I'm happy to speak with both of you.
Okay. Talk to Don. I'm done. That guy just wanted to talk to me forever.
Oh, okay. Well, I do want to, it's funny, touch on the first caller a little bit. I was raised Seventh-day Adventist, and I too believed up until recently that we humans roamed the earth with dinosaurs, and I am wrong, of course.
You're not wrong anymore.
It's a common belief, right? Because it's we just can't reason about and even really comprehend the far distant past, right? It's just too many years to even really understand. So you have to be trained in that arena to know that, hey, there really was no overlap here, and any ideas of that are just, we have a very human-centric view of the world, and so we think we've been around a long time.
Yes. Okay. So to my question, I am, like I mentioned, I grew up theist, a Protestant Christian, and I am becoming more and more convinced that it is all baloney. And
the more you look,
and but I'm trying to. I'm having a lot of trouble finding unbiased, especially on the internet, research material and just like information about the historical credit, the Bible, and I've just had so many people telling me, "Oh, the Bible is just."
There's a lot of junk out there, isn't there?
Proof, and I'm like, I don't think so, and I just want to know what you have. Like, give me like a book or something that I can read and look into.
So, okay, one of the things is, let me hit two things real quick, and then I'll give you my kind of thoughts on recommendations for that.
Okay.
Number one, it's difficult to sort through and get the good information and tweak it out from the bad.
It's a very complex topic.
There are plenty of people who list, like, let's say, biblical contradictions. This verse contradicts that verse, and in some cases, they're correct, that's a contradiction. In other cases, they may not actually be correct. There may be some other contextual thing that makes it not clear. I would try to stick closer to recognized, generally published and peer-reviewed New Testament scholars, people like Richard Carrier, Bart Ehrman, Bob Price. Yeah, there's... as far as internet resources, I think one of the best resources on the internet is infidels.org, and they have this library repository that is divided up into a historic library and a modern library, so you can look at a lot of writings. And so you could even go to infidels.org and say, give me find all the articles about, biblical criticism or biblical contradictions. And just remember that when you go through those, you might have to dig a little bit deeper. They might not all be correct. My second favorite resource for stuff like this is skepticsannotatedbible.com, which I would have listed first just because it's quick and easy to get to and find stuff. And I went to it today. I will say, though, that as much as Steve Wells has done amazing work on that site, and I look forward to working with him on stuff, there are contradictions listed or problems listed that I don't think are quite as accurate as they could be. But here's the key to all of this. What if we could find no contradictions in the Bible? What if we could find nothing in the Bible that was clearly immoral or out of touch with reality? That still doesn't demonstrate that what it says is true, especially when it comes to its claims about the supernatural and afterlives and gods. And I apologize, but they've put the credits up, so I have to leave you on that note because the show is now over. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out in the studio audience. There's the people who are making the show happen. And thanks, Don, for dealing with that caller. And
Trying
we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.